second chance in the game.
I'm going to be talking today about how to win small, breaking the stereotype of being undersized. A little bit of background on myself so you can get to know me. I'm 2009 Villa Grove graduate. I played quarterback there for Coach Musselman and his tenure there. And then in 2013, I graduated from Millikan University. Go Big Blue. Played defensive back and wide receiver there. Graduated from there with a degree in elementary education. From that time, immediately after graduation, I got a job here at Fiser. Loved every second of it. I started out as an assistant coach in 2013. Never looked back. Was an assistant for 3 years before I got the head job, and I've been our head coach the last 3 seasons. So that's been great. Started out as a third grade teacher, kind of a weird scenario there where I was working with the young kids, but I love that. And then now I'm actually our high school athletic director. A little bit of information about Fiser High School so you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about, our type of kids in our community. We're a very rural high school about 15 minutes outside of Champaign, so 15 minutes north. We have an enrollment of 195 kids. So in Illinois, we're 1A. There's 8 classes in Illinois, obviously. We're the smallest, 195 kids. Our average conference opponent from this year, 321. So we play some really stiff competition. Playing the Heart of Illinois Conference. The last 4 years, they've been responsible for the 2A state champions. So we've played those 4 teams, so we get a great look every single year on what a really good opponent looks like and what really good football looks like. So until this past fall, we had 1 team in school history that had won a playoff game. So before then, we had gotten into the playoffs, but hadn't really been a team that was making noise in the playoffs. So I really wanted to change that when I got here. I heard this kind of continually when I was an assistant coach, and even since I've been the head coach, is if we can just be in the top half of the league, if we can just do well, win half of our games in conference, a lot of people in our community would be satisfied. That's not something my staff and our kids wanted to be okay with, so we've tried to really take it to the next level. I'm going to talk about being undersized, and that's something here at Fiser that we have dealt with over the last, probably 5 years. My first year here, we had a really big squad. We were like 240 across the board, which in 1A in Illinois is just massive. So I think I had a little bit of a progression, and I think if you're starting to realize you're undersized, this is the progression that you're going to go through as well. The first thing you're going to do is make some excuses. Talk about why you can't be successful. Then you and your staff are going to recognize, hey, we are small. What can we do to change things? And then lastly, you're going to accept that you're small, accept that you're undersized, and try to game plan and figure out ways that you can put your kids in the best position to win. So background on us, and you'll see that line there on the computer, and that's because that was when I had the realization, when I recognized that Fiser football was small. Okay, so our first year, my first year as a head coach, 2016, my staff's first year, we finished 1-8. We were outscored by opponents 401-92. Didn't play in a lot of close games. Of those 92 points, I think one game we had kind of for like 45 of them. So it was a pretty dismal year for our kids. It was hard on our players, hard on our coaches, hard on our community. And then that line's indicative of when my staff and I realized, okay, we're small. What can we do to capitalize on being small? What can we do to put our kids in the best position to win? So from there, 2017, 2 years ago, finished 6-4. First playoff berth in 4 years, had a great chance in the playoff, lost on a last-second field goal heartbreaker. And then in 2018, this past fall, finished 8-3, tied the school record for wins. It was our first playoff win in 13 years. It's only the second team in Fiser's history to win a playoff game. So the excuses part. We've all heard those coaches who make excuses for why their teams aren't successful. Okay, I've been one of those coaches. I know I've been to clinics, and I've talked to those guys too. This first one comes from me. That quote up there, it says, hey, we're too small to ever get a push up front. How can we be successful, right? It seems like when coaches complain a lot, rarely do they talk about themselves and things that they could have done differently or things they could have changed. It's always about the kids, right? But when they're successful, it's all about the coaching. So I've heard these at clinics. We didn't have a quarterback this year. Our defense wasn't big enough. We couldn't stop anyone. Those are comments that I've heard or that I've made myself until this transition came. So for me and my staff, we wanted to turn those excuses into challenges. So the difference between an excuse and a challenge to me is an excuse is a reason, hey, we can't be successful. We weren't successful because of this reason. But a challenge is it's an obstacle that you and your staff can work on. It's something that is going to be difficult, but you can overcome it. So that's the differences in those two types of thinking. Next step is recognition, and this happened for us in 2017. We had one player, our left guard, who was about 240 or 250, and other than that, we didn't have a single player over 200 pounds. On our entire defense, no one over 200 pounds, and then one player on offense in 2017. In 2018, we had 0 players over 200 pounds, so 22 starting spots, no players over 200 pounds started. We had a couple guys start there at the beginning of the season. They were a little heavy. They trimmed down, and they were under 200 by the end of the season. So something we've battled here being a small school is that we haven't always had the ability to recruit those bigger kids. Sometimes those bigger guys, they don't want to come out for football. They think, I'm going to be a lineman. I'm not going to have a chance to be a kid who gets his name in the paper and that sort of thing. So we've really struggled to get those kids out for football. One thing as coaches that we can impact is we can have an impact on their strength and their speed, right? We can get them in the weight room. We can make them more explosive. We can take how strong they are. We can even make them stronger. What we can't change is we can't change their size. We can add some muscle onto them. We can make them a little bit heavier, but my 5'9" running back is never going to be 6'1". Okay? My offensive lineman who's, 180 pounds, he's never going to be 240. So for a coaching staff, we had to recognize that and try to adapt. So that last stage that I think we got into this year really was acceptance. We knew that our lack of success our first year was coming from one of two places. Either your players are unwilling to execute what you're teaching them. All right, so they're not going to do it. No matter how hard you coach them, it's them saying, hey, I'm not doing that. Maybe they're undisciplined. They don't buy into what you're selling. Or the second reason that you can be unsuccessful is you may coach something, all right, but you are unable to recognize what you're teaching isn't something that your player is capable of doing. I did this my first year. It was a mistake I made, and it's partially why we were 1-8. I was asking my kids to do things that they weren't good at, that they couldn't excel at, and that we couldn't win games with. So I had to change my thinking. So accept that your team's undersized. It's important. Accept that you're not a big football team. That's okay. All right, and then you and your staff have got to look in the mirror and decide, okay, what can we do, even though we're small, to be successful? So evaluate your strategies, look at your fundamentals, and see if they align with what your players are good at, what your players' abilities are. So those challenges, they present some major ones when you're undersized. So after you've accepted those, the two biggest challenges, and I'm going to talk about those today, are tackling, number one, okay, and also blocking. Those are two things that it's a lot easier to do those two things if you're big. So how can you be good at those things? Those are pretty critical points of football, tackling and blocking. How can you be good at those things even if you're not a big kid? Okay? You got to just look and figure out what the solution is for tackling and blocking when you don't have those big kids. Okay, so this is kind of the pillars of our football team, and I kind of tagged them as the pillars of winning small. So if you're undersized, what can you do to be successful? Number one, it starts with effort, okay? Second, it starts in the weight room. Then it's tackling, blocking, like I just talked about. And the last thing is schematics and position play. Being small is not something you can say, you know what, we're going to hit it hard in the weight room, and it's going to fix our problem. Being small is not something you can say, you know what, we're going to change the offense that we call, and it's going to make you successful. All of these things that I've listed here have to work together in order for you to take your program, if you have kids who are undersized, and be successful with it. Okay? One or two of these things, in my opinion, won't get the job done. You have to have all 5 of these things working together to get to your goal. Okay? Size doesn't matter, contrary to popular belief. Effort does. Okay? When you're playing undersized, maximum effort is critical. All right? You have got to play harder than your opponent. All right? Constantly, opponents are trying to beat us up. They're trying to abuse us up front because they're bigger, stronger than we are. All right, our answer to this, and we talk to our kids about this, is we are going to overwhelm them with effort. Extreme, relentless effort is how our kids compete with kids who are bigger than they are. And when you do that and you do it for 4 quarters, we wore a lot of teams down. We're talking about kids who are a little bit skinnier, okay, and a little bit better shape, and all of a sudden that kid who's 240 in the 4th quarter, you've been coming, and then all of a sudden in that 4th quarter, man, he's tired. And your kid, because he's a little bit thinner, in better shape, he can keep it going, okay? So effort is critical. Okay, weight training. When you're undersized, you got to be strong, all right? Now, being strong is one thing if you're 240. There's kids who are 240 and they're strong, and they're going to be stronger than my kid who's 180 and strong, and that's okay. But are my kids strong for how much they weigh? Are they strong for their size, okay? We don't have to be big, but we got to be strong for our body weight. And our whole weight program is tailored around this idea, getting kids who are strong for their body weight. We focus on core strength, speed, and mobility. Okay, mobility, that last one, that's really helped us a lot with injury prevention over the last couple years. Okay, it allows our small kids, our guys who aren't very big, to work on things that they're good at. Okay, I'm not asking our small guys to, bench press 300 pounds. Okay, in my time here, I think I've only had a handful of 300-pound squatters. That's the reality of being at a school that has, kids who are not very big. We utilize the Volt Strength app. It's something that I got into about 2.5 years ago, and it's been great for us. It's similar to some coaches who use Platform, I think, but Volt's a company that we've got in with. They have an app. Everything's tailored based on football workouts, and our kids absolutely love it, and they've bought in. So for us, our examples of Volt training, and I've kind of included them there on your screen, we have, some unorthodox lifts that really work on mobility, okay, and core strength. And you can look at these, our first guy, he's doing a single leg hip extension with the bar on his legs there, okay, really working on strengthening those hips, okay. This is a one-arm kneeling press, all right. We're working on that core strength, also that shoulder mobility and arm strength. All right, this next one is just it's what we call, I think, a kickback. All right, and that's where, we're just reaching back, trying to stretch out that core, stretch out those hips. The last one looks kind of funny, but we're really working that core strength and also that neck strength, 2 things that are super important for football. So we're going to do cleans. We're going to squat, we're going to bench press, we're going to deadlift, we're going to do all those things that you have to do in order to get stronger and try to get as big as you can possibly be. But we really focus on some of these unorthodox things because we really feel like it helps our kids be able to compete with some of those bigger, stronger kids they're playing on Fridays. Another thing we do in our program is we really prioritize speed. It's something that's really important for us. If we're small, we better be fast, right? If you're small and slow, you're going to have a hard time winning. So even though we're small, we really focus on, I talk to my kids all the time about we're the fastest team in the conference. We're the fastest team anybody's going to see all year. We play faster, okay, and we are faster than any of our opponents. So that's a critical thing in our program. We work a lot of explosive lifts in the weight room. We're going to hit box jumps. We're going to do explosive squats and lunges. These are all programmed through our Volt app. And we spend a significant amount of time, I know a lot of coaches do this, working ladders and speed hurdles, but I mean, it's something that we spend a lot of time on, especially in the summer when, getting those kids to peak speed is really important. And the other thing that we do is we teach the proper mechanics of how to sprint and how to run fast, where we want to try to eliminate wasted movement and wasted motion so our kids can be as efficient as possible and really get up to that maximum speed. So speed is something that if you're small, you've got to prioritize that. And listen, our linemen are fast. Okay, I have tackles who are faster than other teams' running backs. I have guards who are the exact same way. I have a nose tackle who could run with most kids in the conference. So that's something that we make it important to our kids and we sell it as being important to them. Injury prevention. So we had a lot of injuries my first year, and I kind of tied that all back to, I don't know that we didn't have enough muscle on. We hadn't been in a great lifting program the previous couple years. And we talk about lifting, it's body armor. It puts body armor on your kids where they can, come out unscathed from battle on a Friday night. So when we implemented volts, since we started doing that in the February of 2016, we've had 0 non-contact injuries, excuse me. So we haven't had anything where a kid, has hurt his MCL or ACL or something like that where he's cutting on air. We haven't had that happen. And over the last 2 years, we've really had minimal injuries with very few kids missing on Friday night. So that's also the way that we train in the weight room, and it's also the way we practice, and I'll kind of get into that shortly once I get into a little bit more of this presentation. But because we're smaller, we have to have really good mobility. Listen, there are times that our kids are, going up against a player who's bigger and stronger than he is, and no matter how hard he competes, there may be a play where, he's getting rolled up on and bent over, and our kids have to be able to get up the next play and be okay. So we try to coach our kids to be strong in a variety of positions throughout the year. So also, anytime you're dealing with injuries, you have to be a little bit lucky, okay? And I get that. That's something we've been really lucky, but then I also think that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And we've been preparing in the weight room all year for us to be healthy throughout the year. So, lifting and being able to have great core strength and great mobility has really helped us as far as limiting our injuries on Friday nights throughout the year. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is defense, okay, and how do you win small on defense? And like I talked about earlier, the biggest challenge on defense when you're small is tackling, okay? It presents a major challenge. I'd much rather have a bigger guy making a tackle than a smaller guy. I think your odds are better if they're both taught the exact same technique, okay? So the first thing that we do with our defense, and no matter what your scheme is, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to try to change your scheme with what you do, okay? Whatever defense you run, awesome. Keep it simple. And I listen to so many coaches talk about, oh, it's really simple. You do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, and they keep going through all these things that aren't simple. I want my kids to not think on Fridays. I want everything to be automatic. Every drill that we do is trying to build automaticity for our athletes. How fast can we react? How fast can we attack once we've read our key? Okay, so keep it simple. Prioritize making sure your kids know exactly what their job is every single week. If you're undersized, you got to play fast, okay? If you're wasting precious seconds, they're going to tick away and somebody's going to be on you. We can't have any indecision because we rely so much on our speed. By keeping things simple, our kids can play fast and also play with what I talked about earlier, a critical component, maximum effort. Right? Okay, so again, whatever your scheme is, I urge you just to try to keep it as simple for your kids. If you're a 4-4, great. If you're a 4-3, great. Keep it simple for your kids so they can react and play fast. Okay, so our scheme, we run a 3-5-3. Okay, you can call it a 3-3 stack. We stack our kids. Our front is in. We play in nose and 2-4 techniques with backers stacked directly behind them at 4 to 5 yards. And we have 2 what we call edge linebackers. And we play 1 safety and 2 corners. Okay. So why do we run the 3-5-3? And again, I don't need you to run the 3-5-3. I just want you to understand my coaching staff's thought process on why we run the 3-5-3. More linebackers, number one. I got a lot of kids who look like linebackers. Kids who are, 160, 170 pounds. A lot of kids who look like that. I don't have a lot of guys who fit the mold of being a lineman. Okay, so only 3 defensive linemen, that's good for me. I only got to put 3 of those heavies out there, and I'll throw heavies up with quotations because we don't have too many kids who are heavy. All right, and we play in nose and 2-4 techs like I talked about. We really focus on having those guys knife into gaps. And the reason we do that, it allows us to create some confusion for those opposing offensive linemen and hopefully get some unblocked players, because we tell our kids, if those opposing offensive linemen get their mitts on you, you're in trouble as an undersized player. So it's all about creating confusion and trying to have unblocked players. So digging in a little bit more to tackling, okay? It's difficult like we talked about, particularly in those one-on-one situations, okay? We have very few kids on our roster who get solo tackles. It's just not something that we do because our kids have a really difficult time bringing opponents down just because they're undersized. A lot of running backs we play are significantly bigger than my defensive linemen, okay? Multiple games we played like that this year. All right, so tackling is also an issue because if you want to rep it, you got to say, okay, we're not good at tackling, let's rep it a lot in practice. Well, then all of a sudden, now you got dudes who are hurt and guys who aren't playing 100% on Friday or maybe not even playing at all. So how do you get better at tackling without tackling? And I'm going to talk about that. The first way that we approach tackling, and this kind of fits into that mold of pursuit and why it's important, or excuse me, it fits in that mold of effort rather, okay? Pursuit, all right? All coaches, they're going to tell you, hey, pursuit's really important. It's something we work on a lot, okay? We want to be better at pursuit. We always get hats to the ball, okay? But a few of those coaches spend the time necessary to get really good at pursuit, okay? And for us, we work pursuit every day. It is something we start every defensive segment before. So we're a small school, so we do offense. All my kids play offense. All my kids play defense. So they have an offensive position, a defensive position. So we usually start offense. Offense starts practice, and then we go into defense. We start our defensive segment with pursuit every single day. It's the foundation of our defense. Okay, we talk about all the time that pursuit always wins. All right, one thing that we did too, I just want to throw this in there, is we gave our defense a name. We call it the mob, all right, because it is just a flurry of people, one after the other, okay? It's like a mob, and we get there, we tell our kids we want them to get there angry. You know, I've heard swarm and hive and everything like that, but for us, you know, we just adopted the mob, and our kids have bought into that culture. So if you can do something like that for your kids where they can buy into that pursuit culture, I think it could really help. So again, we tell our kids that pursuit wins. The mob always wins. And, you know, the other thing you need to understand about pursuit, again, whatever scheme you run, pursuit's universal. Okay, it's something that every single team can do no matter what your scheme is. No matter how many D linemen, linebackers, and defensive backs you play, you can always pursue the football with tenacity. This is a drill that we do. I wanted to share this with you. This is what we call our mob pursuit drill. So basically, we aren't going to have any offensive players out there. We're going to have a coach standing right here. It's usually myself because I try to really pride our kids on pursuing the football. So we're going to align our defense in a base set and just facing me. So they're going to be out in front of me. I'm going to be surveying our defense. I'm just going to be sitting there like I'm the quarterback. I have a football, okay? I'm going to give a cadence, okay? And then as soon as I snap the ball, all right, our kids are going to get into their run fits. So they're going to pop their feet. My linebackers are going to pop their feet for their read steps. My defensive backs are going to backpedal. My D linemen are going to step to their gap and knife through. All right, and then at that point, I'm either going to show run to the right with the football, I'm going to show run to the left with the football, or I'm going to drop back to pass, okay? If I show it to the right, okay, like on this screen here, our defense is right, you're going to see, okay, this player right here, the closest player to the sideline, okay, is hopefully going to be the first one there. All right, and our goal, okay, we don't have a rabbit, we don't have anything like that, okay? Our kids sprint to the sideline. All right, the first rule, okay, we're going to sprint. Second rule, don't follow anyone. If you are following directly behind someone, you are creating a cutback lane. All right, so if I'm this linebacker here or walked up in and I'm sprinting to the sideline, the next person behind me, he better not be falling right behind me, okay, if he's not going to get to the sideline before me. So he's going to take a deeper route. And what this does here is it just builds that wall, okay, for that ball carrier. So although he may escape one guy, all right, we're just building a wall here of pursuit for all of our guys to get there. So this guy right here should be the first one to the sideline, okay, or your corner rather. Your corner's going to backpedal and he's going to break up, okay? Your next closest guy, he better be there, all right? And then as you go, this is your third guy to the sideline, fourth, fifth, and so on. You're going to notice some of those kids, they may be right next to each other. Okay, we want a little bit of spacing in there, but we want those kids to really pursue hard, sprint, don't follow anyone, and we're just going to build that wall. So make sure as they're going to the sideline, deeper than the person before you who made it there, okay? Okay, so I have a little bit of clips here of our defense and the way in which we pursue. Again, we call our defense the mob, but we really take a lot of pride in how hard our kids get to the ball. So this first one here is a look at a team running jet sweep here, and you're going to see as they kind of come to the sideline that, you know, they're starting to get us outflanked a little bit, but because of the pursuit coming so hard from the inside and all of our guys working to get flat and taking good angles, we're really able to cut that ball carrier off. So as he gets here, there's just a lot of black jerseys that really don't allow him to go anywhere. Get a tackle there for a minimal gain. This was our second game of the year, so pretty early on in the year we had a fourth down and long here, and really I think the reason that we were able to get a stop here is because of the guys pursuing at the second level. A lot of sense of urgency. This was a pretty critical point in the game, and our kids are just trained to get to the football hard. So you'll see an outside sweep here, and we're able to really track them down from, you know, a lot of guys coming from that second level. I mean, right now there's a lot of space out there, but because we have a lot of guys pursuing hard, we're able to get there and make a stop just before the sticks. Okay. This one, same thing. If you look up here at the top of the screen, there is a ton of room out here for bubble, right? And our kind of philosophy is we dare teams to throw bubble because we, like our back to our saying, the mob always wins. So we're going to pursue hard and we're going to get there. So looking here, you know, they can throw bubble and it should be open. And it is open to start. But then the mob comes and, you know, we're able to track it down for a minimal gain. So, and if you look right here, this is kind of what you saw during our drill as far as guys just pursuing one after the other, right? We're trying to build a wall. Not a lot of guys here are following each other, which is really what we want. Okay, and then another reason that being undersized and pursuit's really important is you're going to have kids who, you know, who are pretty big kids or athletic kids, and to bring them down, you're going to need everybody to get there. And we really focus on gang tackling, getting a bunch of hats there. And this was a great play. This is down in the red zone, crucial point in the game. You know, they run a rollout pass down here to their right, and our kids are able to bow up, and we get about 10 hats there to make a stop. So pretty special play here, just getting a lot of guys to the ball. Okay, again, about 10 guys are in on that tackle, which is what we love to see. Okay, so we've talked about pursuit and how important it is, but let's get into technique a little bit. So how do we teach our kids to tackle? So we are a rugby-style shoulder tackling team. So we do not incorporate our head at all. We are going to try to use our shoulders for absolutely everything. So if you get a chance, and I'm assuming most of you have heard of it, but the Seattle Seahawks have an unbelievable video. So we call it hawk tackling based off the Seahawks. I know a lot of teams use that terminology. So we work hawk tackling every day. And basically the idea of hawk tackling is it's going to eliminate our kids from having to put their face across an opponent. When I was in high school, that's how you were taught. You got to get your head across so they can't run by you. We do not teach that at all. Everything that we're going to do is we're going to hit with that near shoulder to the ball carrier. So we're not jeopardizing our athletes' head safety at all. So hawk tackling, another thing that's pretty convenient of it, or about it rather, is that they really focus on tackling lower. So being undersized, that helps us bring down those big ball carriers. So it really works in our favor with that. The last thing though is if you're going to implement hawk tackling, it's not something that you can do halfway. It's something that you really have got to go all in on and work on it. Basically, it has to be the basics of everything that you're doing tackling wise. And actually our elementary kids, our JFL, they do hawk tackling. So it's something where when they get into high school, they're very familiar with how to tackle. I don't give my JFL coaches they don't necessarily need a ton of guidance as far as the way we do things at the high school level, but we spend time with our JFL coaches on how we want them to tackle because it's so important, especially for the safety and the future of our game. So tackling drills. We talked about keeping our guys healthy, all right? So you have the two sides of it. Okay, we want to keep our guys healthy, number one. But on the other side, if I'm keeping our guys healthy, then we're probably not going full speed. We're probably not tackling maybe any, if at all, okay? So what can you do as a staff to get your kids better at tackling? Okay, and we do it with our tackling drills. And guys, we tackle at full speed every day, okay? In my opinion, you can't expect to go half speed in practice and then be good at tackling full speed during a game, okay? But we're not tackling each other at full speed, okay? We're tackling bags, we're tackling donuts, we're doing different things where our kids have low impact on one another, where I'm not gonna get a kid hurt in practice because we're working on tackling, okay? So typically our tackling is a 10-minute circuit. We have 3 different stations, about 3 minutes at each station, 30 seconds to transition. All right, and I'm going to go over what some of our tackling stations are. We usually pick 3 each day. Obviously, we have more than this, but these are kind of the pillars of what we use for our tackling fundamentals and things like that. So again, all of these are low impact, and they can be done at full speed, which I love. It keeps our players healthy and safe, but it also gets them the reps they need to be able to tackle at full speed on a Friday night when things are moving fast. So the first one that we do, we call this partner tackling, and we do it with 3 whistles. So it's like our 3-whistle partner tackling drill. And we have coaches every day that are assigned to a different one. Like I have the drill that I do, and I do that drill every single day with the kids. So they are hearing the exact same thing from me on my drill. They're hearing the exact same thing from my assistants on whatever drill they're running. So players partner up with someone about their size. So if you look down here, our triangles are our tacklers, and our circles are our ball carriers. So in this instance, you're just going to be kind of, about a 45-degree angle. That person's going to be right in front of you, okay? And our first whistle, we're going to get into good tackling position. So good tackling position for us, okay, and you'll see it a moment here in a video that I pulled, but you're going to see that guy in a nice low stance, okay? Hands are ready. We talk to our kids about putting their hands on their guns, right? Hands on their holsters so they can shoot them and wrap, all right? But we're going to, everything that we predicate tackling on is the idea that our nipples, knees, and toes are all in a line, right? So everything's lined up. We're in a nice upright position, okay, ready to attack, making sure that we're dropping our hips. So on that first whistle, we're dropping down, okay? Nipples, knees, toes, everything's in a line, good tackling position. On that second whistle, okay, again, that guy's right in front of me, okay, I am going to get my eyes on their thighs, okay, so that's the aiming point with my shoulder pad, okay? So putting my shoulder pad on their thigh, okay, I'm going to club up and I'm going to grab that opposite wrist. Okay, so that key thing is where we say eyes to thighs and then grab that opposite wrist. Last year, we were having a really difficult time wrapping people up early in the year, and one of our assistant coaches pointed out, hey, I had them work on grabbing their opposite wrist. It totally changed our open field tackling, because then we were really wrapping guys up when we focused on getting that offhand to the opposite wrist. So that was something that was really good. And then on that third whistle, so we're in that great position, we have them wrapped up, we're squeezing, we are going to roll to our leverage. So I'm never going to roll towards that player, I'm going to roll away from him, the side that my head is on, okay? And typically when we do this, so this tackler, he's going to tackle the guy 3 times on this side, he's going to go over here, where his leverage is on the other side, we're going to go 3 times here, and then they're going to switch places. So now I got 6 reps of great form tackling, and it's happened in about 3 minutes. So a lot of reps, really get to work on that great form. You can see this video up here I pulled. We don't necessarily do it this way, in the fact that this is all one motion, okay? We kind of break it down. We do our 3 whistles because that's what works for us. If you have a little bit more advanced kids, you may be able to do something like this, okay? So on that, okay, they're just going to wrap it up and then roll. Notice he's rolling to his left, which is the side that his head is on to begin with. So he's keeping that leverage. He's in a nice upright position. You can see his chest, okay? You can see his eyes, okay? He's dropping his butt down, and then on that, when we would hear that whistle, we're going to wrap it up and we're going to roll him down, okay? Just like that, okay? Great form tackle. It's a great way to get to work on that with your kids at full speed. Okay, our next drill that we are going to work is what we call push-pull drill, all right? And when we do this, we're really focusing on our footwork, all right? So we've kind of worked on that, kind of the upper body part. Well, how do we get into position to tackle? Because it's easy to tackle somebody when you're a yard away from them, right? But how do you get into that great position and that great posture to tackle someone? Okay, so what we do is we set up 2 cones, okay, and they're about 45 degrees away, 45 degrees at an angle, okay, and about 10 yards away. Okay, you could do a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. It's up to you. All right, and what we're going to do is this is just going to be a dummy. This can be, an upright dummy that your coach is holding. If you have a stand-up, put it there, okay? You're not actually tackling it. You're just working on getting into good posture and good position to make a tackle. So we're going to blow our whistle, coaches, okay? As soon as that happens, our players are going to jog to within about 5 yards of this thing, okay? They're going to jog within about 5 yards. And if you look here, these circles are the athlete's feet. So what we want to do is we want to drop into good tackling position. Everything's lined up, nipples, knees, toes, okay? With my near foot up. So whatever foot is close to the ball carrier, that's the foot I want up, okay? And then they are just going to push with their back foot and pull with their front foot, okay? Push, pull, push, pull. So that's the way we rep it, okay? Our hips are square and our shoulders are square to the goal line. So even though my ball carrier may be over here, I'm still protecting the goal line. I'm going to push, pull at him at an angle for that, okay? Again, our hips are square, so that way we're protecting the end zone. All right, and then as they go by, so they're going to be jogging to 5 yards. You can do this faster once your kids have mastered it. They can sprint. and then break down, push, pull, under control, and then as they go by, our kids just tap that bag. They tap that bag and they pretend to club up, all right, for that nice wrap work there. But we call this push-pull drill. This is the foundation of the footwork, and again, getting into that great position to actually tackle. Something that we can do full speed, something where guys aren't getting impacted, they're not getting hurt, they're staying healthy. Okay, another tackling drill that we really love is what we call drive for 5. So we start out, and we're going to go ahead and set up. We're lucky enough we have like a high jump pad, or if you have, anything that has a thick base that your kids can come down on without getting hurt, you can put that back there and use it. So we're going to set up that high jump pad, and we put 2 defenders in front of it. That's what these circles are here. Those defenders are both holding hand shields, right? And those hand shields are covering basically their mid-chest down to about their mid-thigh. And they're going to be holding that hand shield. We're going to make sure we get our arm through it so that way that hand shield isn't falling off or going anywhere on contact. Okay, and they're in kind of a nice athletic position holding that hand shield. All right. Our kids are lined up about 5 yards away, again, at a 45-degree angle, because we're never going to cross face. We're always going to work on maintaining our leverage, okay? They're going to take, when that whistle blows, they're going to take 2 fast steps. In other words, we're going to take, we're going to explode out almost running steps, okay? Then they're immediately going to flip their hips. We're going to get into that push-pull position that we just worked on in one of our last drills, okay? We're going to drop down into tackling position. Everything's lined up, nipples, knees, toes. Okay, in that great tackling position, we're going to push and pull until contact. Okay, and then we are going to wrap and squeeze. Okay, trying to grab that other arm, squeezing tight, and then I am running my feet until they hit that high jump pad. So this player should stop when his feet hit the high jump pad because he can't keep running them anymore. And our high jump pad, it's about probably 2 feet off the ground. Okay, so it's great. So this is something that we're able to do at full speed, right? This is something maybe that's important to like your linebackers. You're not going to be able to go eyes to thighs, wrap, and roll a kid down. Because when you do that, he may fall forward. If he's at full speed, he's going to gain 3 extra yards. All right, well on 3rd and 1, gaining 3 extra yards isn't going to cut it. So this is something that's really important for our linebackers where we're fitting up and we're running our feet, okay? And what I love about this drill, this is a tenacious drill. Pads are popping, right? Kids are playing at full speed. Okay, you're taking a kid all the way down, to the ground. But the thing is he's not getting hit. It's a low-impact drill, again, that we can do at full speed, working on game-type situations where we're fitting up on a kid. Nobody's injured. We're doing it at full speed. It checks both those boxes for us. Our last tackling drill that we really like is what we call 7-cone tackling. Okay, and it's called 7-cone because you can see these are orange cones. 1 cone, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? These groupings, okay, player groupings, you'll see, are based on their position. So on this cone, you're going to have your D linemen, okay? On this cone, you're going to have your linebackers. On this cone, you're going to have your DBs, okay? Their depth is 5 yards away from this first cone, 10 yards away, 15 yards away, okay? And you're going to have 1 ball carrier in the middle. So that's your guy who's carrying the ball. Split these up in 5-yard increments, okay? And your goal is to get to the near hip of the ball carrier. So again, we're not really working on the contact here. We're working on getting into good position with good posture, both of those things, okay? So our goal is to get to that near hip, and we do not want to let that ball carrier ever cross our face. So if I have a ball carrier who's over here, I am never going to allow him to get across my face. Okay, I'm going to make sure I work my leverage so my head is always on this side, which really fits into the safety we're trying to teach our kids where, they're never putting their head at risk, okay? They're at different depths. The reason that we do this, we started this a couple years ago. My defensive backs, who are back at 15 yards, they have to be able to tackle in a lot bigger space and wide open space than my D linemen do. There was no point of putting my D linemen 10 yards away. That's not a realistic open field tackle that they're going to have to make. So in this drill, we're really focusing on the open field tackling. I have a video here I want to show you guys. This is right off that Seahawks video that you can look up on YouTube. And they do this drill a little bit differently. They throw the ball to a guy, and then both players are tracking his near hip, okay, keeping their eyes on the near hip and not letting the ball carrier cross their face, getting into good posture and making the tackle, okay? Okay, you'll notice I'm breaking down, getting to that ball carrier, right? Okay, getting to that near hip, really focus on trying to get that hand to that hip. And you'll watch, when they try to cross face, these guys don't let him do it, right? They want to force him in the middle there, okay? So that ball carrier is trying to break down leverage. This is a great one, okay? Keeps them on that side, yep, and then sandwich right in the middle. So that's our goal. That's exactly what we're working on in that 7-cone drill, okay? Okay, as far as our tackling success, we feel like we've really had some success implementing hawk tackling over the last couple years. Fewer missed tackles the last 2 seasons since really going all in on hawk tackling. This is probably what I'm most proud of, and it's a great selling point when I talk to parents, when I talk to young kids who I'm trying to convince to play football, is we've had 3 concussions over the last 2 years. All right, all those are at the JV level. They're kids who maybe haven't played football before, aren't super familiar with football. But by tackling this way, we really take our head out of the equation. We take our head out of tackling. So we haven't had any head injuries in practice. All right, so all the concussions that I'm talking about have happened during game action, which is exactly what we want. We are not at the liberty to have kids getting hurt during practice, especially with head injuries and the way that our game is right now. So we protect our kids in practice, yet we play fast and rep game type situations with physicality, which is what we love with all those tackling drills. Another thing that's difficult as a defender is, aside from tackling, it's also defeating blocks, right? So once a guy gets his hands on you, it's really tough as a small guy to get off and try to make a tackle. So this is something that we've looked at really closely the last couple of years as a staff and figured out how can we get better at defeating blocks. So that's something that's difficult, and we want to look, there's a couple ways you can defeat blocks, right? Okay, there's the push and pull method, push them off, pull them by. Okay, great, that works. Okay, where you can press them out and then rip through, another method clearly works. Okay, and the other thing is you can maybe post a guy and then try to squeeze him down into the gap. All right, all those things work for defeating blocks, okay? The only problem with all of those strategies or all of those fundamentals is that they all require the defense to, at some point, overpower the offense, which our kids have a really difficult time doing because they're undersized. So how can we defeat blocks without being bigger and stronger than people? Okay, so again, we don't have that luxury. So we use a dip and rip method. So everything that we're going to do, we're going to focus on attacking half the man. Okay, we're never going to take a block head on. We're going to attack half the man. We're going to make sure we lean into that block. All right. That's something I learned from Coach Albaugh. You can see it right down there if you check out his dip and rip drill on YouTube, okay? I'm going to lean into that block, I'm going to dip my shoulder, and I'm going to rip through, okay, and accelerate. So that's what we teach our kids. You don't have to be big to do that, right? We're almost trying to avoid that guy getting his hands on rather, by dipping and ripping. So we're staying low, we're going to attack half that man, lean into it, and then rip through, okay? And it's still physical. All right, we're not telling our kids not to be physical, but I'm also not telling my kid to run into a block and try to bench press him off when I know that's something that my kids can't do, right? This is something that I know, if done correctly and executed correctly, my players, regardless of their size, they can have success defeating blocks with that dip and rip move. Okay, defensive line play. And this is something that is a challenge, okay? And our defensive line coach does a great job, but we don't have the ability to be a gap-controlled defense, all right? We just don't. Our first year coaching, when we were 1-8, we were like a 4-4. We were a 4-4 team, and we had a lot of small linemen who were trying to squeeze down gaps and stay in the gap. We just can't do that. My kids couldn't do it. So implementing this dip and rip strategy and philosophy worked really well. So when we do that on the defensive line, it's everything that we just talked about basically. The only difference is they're starting at a standstill, right? Okay, so we're going to dip and rip. When we do that, we're going to take a reach step to the gap that we're going to. So whatever direction, a 45-degree step, we're gaining ground, a 6-inch step, okay, and then we're going to work all those things that I just talked about with that dip and rip move, okay? And our goal with the dip and rip on the defensive line, okay, is we want to beat the O-lineman off the ball, okay, and create what we kind of call like a jailbreak type scenario, right? So we want to be behind that offensive lineman in a position where we've beat him, and now we're able to do what? To pursue hard to the football. So when we rip through and we beat that guy, okay, couple critical coaching points. We have got to break down. So we're going to drop our hips, get in an athletic position, and try to locate the ball. Find the ball. Where is it at? Which way do I need to get going? Okay? And then make sure you're pursuing. Key point when you're pursuing is we tell our D linemen, once you've ripped through, we've got to pursue flat. What we can't do is have them running upfield and bowing around and chasing. Okay, if we bow, it wastes valuable seconds and it creates cutback lanes for that ball carrier. So we're trying to get them to rip through, all right, locate the football when they're in an athletic stance, and then they're pursuing really hard to try to find out where that is and try to go make a play. All right, and there may be a lot of times where they're not making a play on the defensive line, but they're opening up a window or forcing the ball carrier into a window where their teammate is, where they can make a play. Another thing that's really important for our defensive linemen and the way that our coaching staff coaches them is we do not get upset about offsides penalties. That sounds like it's really hard to do, and trust me, it is. When it's 3rd and 2 and you jump off sides and give up a first down, it's very frustrating, right? But if we get upset and we jump all over a kid for coming off the ball hard and, getting an offsides penalty, what we're going to do, next time that kid lines up, he's going to come off the ball late, okay? If we come off the ball late, we don't have a chance to win that matchup, okay? So our kids, we really try to reinforce getting off the ball quickly, anticipating that snap count, okay? Coming off, again, as fast as you can every play so they have a chance to win that battle in that one-on-one scenario up front. Again, we're lined up head up nose and head up 4, so we're trying to knife into that gap and win in those situations. A couple variations we mix in on the D-line. If we have teams who are really caving us down inside on some of our down blocks, or some of their down blocks that they're doing rather, we'll work a bull rush technique, okay, where our kids, that lineman's anticipating them stepping down and then they're able to cave them in. So what we'll do is we'll just fire out straight into them. A lot of times we have success with this. It's not something we call very often, but when we do, it surprises the opposing team's offensive line because we're working at angles a lot of times, and now we're firing right at you. So now that kid may be bigger and stronger, but he's expecting you to go one way, and you're coming right at him. So now he's off balance, giving our smaller kid a chance to win that battle. The next one, if we're getting a lot of teams that are just base blocking us, just coming right at us, again, really hard when I got a 250-pound tackle who's blocking my end over there who weighs, we played a kid at end this year who was 165, 170 pounds. And when that happens, we have to figure out ways he can be successful. So if they're base blocking us hard, we may just cut. We may just submarine and go low, okay, take out that guy and try to create a lane for our linebackers to run in. That's something that's also really important for our defensive line and really everyone in our defense to understand. Everything that we do, we kind of filter into our stack linebackers. So our D-line has to know, hey, I may not make a tackle. I'm not going to fill up the stat book with a bunch of tackles. But if I'm doing my job, it's going to allow our defense as a whole to be successful, for the pursuit to get there and those linebackers to fill and make plays and make tackles. So speaking of our linebacker play, I understand everybody coaches linebackers differently. I just wanted to make sure I offer this part because it's been crucial for us and being undersized and how we do things. Okay, so whatever you coach your linebackers to read, great. Okay, whatever they look at, great. If they pop their feet or take read steps, fine. Whatever you have them do, whatever depth, that's okay. All right, but the key point is, all right, the biggest takeaway I have from, and I've coached our linebackers the last 3 years, the biggest takeaway I have is when you have undersized linebackers and you have down blocks like you see right here where guys are coming down, okay, because that ball is going outside. We don't see a lot of zone teams. We don't see a whole lot of teams that run inside and outside zone, so we don't have to deal with that, okay? But when these guys are coming down, all right, we always want to try to get over the top of that down block. So I'm going to teach my kids, my linebackers are going to use that dip and rip move that we talked about, and they're going to try to get by that guy and replace his hip, okay, as fast as possible. And then from there, we're working like our defensive line does. We're breaking down, we're locating the ball, and pursuing, okay? But what I can't ask my guy to do is run up into this down block and try to take it on and jam it back into the hole or, take it if there's a cutback. No, what I've done in that scenario is I've totally taken away my kid's speed, all right, and I put him in a position where that offensive guy can get his hands on. All right, I talk to my stack backers all the time about if they get their hands on you, we lose. We're going to lose that battle 10 times out of 10 because when you play kids who weigh 150 pounds at linebacker, you're not going to have a chance to be successful if you're constantly running into blocks, okay? Now, we aren't avoiding blocks here, all right, but it's right on the edge of avoidance, okay? We're going to take on half that man, and we're going to lean in and explode through, okay? So, again, when we do that, you may be saying, okay, coach, hey, that opens up that cutback lane. Great. we want teams to cut back because, again, it's predicated all on pursuit. If he cuts back, I got 2, 3, 4, 5 guys coming who should be in that cutback lane pursuing their tails off to try to get a stop, okay? So all of that works together. So even though we may over pursue a little by ripping through that down block, I have pursuit coming from the backside, which my guys know they can count on, and they trust their teammates to get there. Okay, so shifting gears, looking at offense, okay? The biggest challenge on offense is blocking, right? Okay, when you're undersized, it's really hard to be good at blocking. So one thing I want to stress, because when I say that, a lot of people probably think, oh, hey, they run, you can spread teams out, you can do this, you can throw the ball around if you're undersized and have a chance to be successful. And that may be true. That may be true for a lot of teams. For us, it isn't true, okay? Just because you're undersized doesn't mean you have to run the spread. We do not run spread, okay? Last season, our average offensive lineman weighed 184 pounds, okay? And you may say, hey, coach, 184, that's a decent-sized lineman. That's our average, though. So if I have a kid who weighs, 195 pounds, that also means I have a kid who weighs 170, okay? We started a kid who weighed 170 pounds last year on the O-line, a couple of those kids, okay? And our backs weren't mammoths to speak of either. In the backfield, we averaged 149 pounds, okay? So no kids over 200. My back's average was under 150, okay? Again, doesn't mean you have to throw the ball to have a chance to be successful when you're undersized. We rushed the ball 83% of our plays last year, okay? We try to pound teams, okay? Because that is a mentality that we have. We are going to run the football. We may have to find ways to run the football differently because we're undersized, but we are committed to running the ball. All right, we passed at 17%, and as you can see, the discrepancy in yards and touchdowns, we are a team that's committed to running the football, and we do that week in and week out. Okay, we believe it's a mentality for our kids, and we preach that. We're going to come off the ball, and we're going to run it down people's throat. Doesn't matter that we're undersized, and as coaches, we got to figure out ways for that to happen. It's a lot easier to run the football, okay, a lot less things have to go right running the football than they do passing. Passing, you got to have good footwork, you got to have a great throw, okay, that the kid's got to catch it, the kid's got to tuck it. A lot of things can happen when you throw the football. So, looking at what we do offensively, you say, okay, coach, you run the ball, you're undersized, how do you do it, okay? And this is what works for us. It doesn't have to work for everyone, it's what works for us. We are a flexbone team. We are in a short pistol in our flexbone veer offense. When I say short pistol, I'm talking my quarterback can touch our center's butt, okay? So it's not a 4-yard pistol, it's not even a 3-yard pistol, it's about a 1.5-yard pistol. And it allows us, because you're on the flexbone and because you're on option, it allows us to take those bigger defensive linemen, and when my offensive line coach says, hey, coach, we can't block that kid. Okay, great. We don't have to block that kid. Let's read that kid. Let's take their kid, their best kid, and whatever he does, he's going to be wrong. Because if he squeezes down, we're going to pull it. If he runs upfield, we're going to give it. And now we've taken their best kid who's unblockable, who we can't handle, and we haven't had to block him. Okay, so that's something that's really important. We also are really big on double teams, and like I talked about on our defense, we keep it simple up front. Okay, we really keep it simple. We talk to our alignment about coming out with effort and trying to create as much force as possible. And for our O-line, the way that we keep it simple, we may have a lot of smoke and mirrors in the backfield. We may do a lot of different motions, move kids around, be in different formations. We have very minimal plays for our offensive line. Everything in the backfield may look different, but we try to minimize what those linemen have to know so they can focus on getting out of their stance and opening up holes for our backs, okay? Other thing that we use is tempo. Tempo gives us a base look from the defense. When we're going fast, we're going to get the most basic look from the defense. We can know where their kids are going to be at. It's tough for them to blitz. It's tough for them to stunt. So we like to go fast. And also by going fast, again, my skinny kids in the fourth quarter, the more plays we have, the fresher they're going to be compared to some of those bigger kids who maybe aren't used to running and going as much as my smaller kids are. So, again, with our schematics, we're going to do everything we can to keep our kids from thinking excessively or can be confused about who to block. Okay, so it's all geared around keeping it simple. Okay, so what challenges are there in blocking? All right, and blocking, again, one of our bigger challenges, we've got to have those small guys blocking kids who are 40 to 50 pounds heavier than they are. We don't have the ability to out-muscle people, right? So everything that we teach our offensive linemen, all the techniques that we use account for them being undersized, okay? Again, my offensive line coach and my coaching staff does a great job of figuring out ways that they can be successful. So we're constantly looking at our offensive line and, even our skill positions of, hey, can we reevaluate this? Are our kids doing a good enough job? Are we asking something that they're capable of doing, okay? So like I talked about earlier, in the veer offense, in the option offense, we use a ton of double teams, okay? Our offense is predicated on it. So it's a numbers game, and my offensive line coach talks about this. There are a lot of times that we can't win one-on-one scenarios, okay? But what can we do? We can win two-on-one scenarios, right? Two of my guys versus one of the defenders. So our line coach will ask our kids all the time. He says, hey, how much do you weigh? Great, how much do you weigh? And he asks that double team, the kids weigh somewhere between, 350, 400 pounds. We're not going to play an opposing lineman who weighs that much, okay? And if we do, he's probably not any good anyway. So we tell those kids, and it's important to get them to believe, hey, we do weigh more than that defender, no matter how good he is, even if he's the best player in the conference. Two of our guys can block their best kids, so we believe that. One thing, when we are in that double team and we're trying to create that vertical push, we do not fall off on linebackers. We don't tell our kids, hey, fall off and pick up that linebacker as he scrapes. It's just not something that we do, partially because our kids, they like to slide off to linebacker. Sliding off onto that linebacker is easy, so it's what a lot of kids like to do. Also, when that happens, we've negated our push. I can't ask my 180-pound kid to continue getting a push on a 250-pound kid when it's only him now. Okay, so we really try to focus on getting that vertical push. All right, the thing with double teams that you really have to understand, it takes a lot of work and a lot of continuity from your offensive line, right? You're going to have to get a ton of reps in there, working on those double teams, working on getting hips together, shoulders together, and really rooting that defender out of there. So we spend a bunch of time with our O-line working on double teams and just working on that continuity. So a lot of reps and a lot of practice for our double teams. The basics for our O-linemen, and I know a lot of coaches, based on what they do or what their scheme is, they're going to coach their stance differently. That's fine. Okay, but for us, and what I would recommend for you is, if you're undersized and you want to run the football, get your weight out on your hand. All right, for our kids, that weight is out on their hand, and they are in a stance which they can explode out of, right? We play with even feet. We don't have a sprinter stance or anything like that, but our kids can fire out like they're a sprinter because all that weight is out on their hands. So 60% of it gets our guys to be able to get that explosion off the line and create some movement on that defensive lineman, even if we are smaller, okay? So that's something that we really stress. 60% is a number that we feel like, okay, hey, it's more than what's on your feet, so it's easier for kids to understand. And the other thing is, we're not saying 80%, because at that point, kids are out of control and won't be able to, fully utilize their balance. So 60% is the number that we kind of arrived at over the last couple years. Footwork, I'm not telling anyone anything they don't know about footwork on the O-line. It's extremely important. It's the basis of everything that you do. But footwork for our small linemen is even more important, okay? Because if they have poor footwork or end up in a bad position, they aren't strong enough to recover from that, okay, to be able to overcome poor footwork. We've all played those guys who maybe their fundamentals aren't great on the O-line, but they can just overpower people. Or maybe you have some of those kids. But, we can't put ourselves in a poor position. So we work on that nipples, knees, toes verbiage just like we do when we're tackling, okay? And we're going to strike with our hands and really focus on running our feet and getting that initial pop as soon as we come out of our stance. That's really important for our offensive linemen. So next I want to talk about hand and head placement for these guys. So hand placement works in conjunction with our footwork, so they work together. We really focus on getting our hands into that defender's breastplate, right? We want to have those thumbs up technique, okay? Because we feel like we can really strike hard with the palm of our hands, right? Okay, the butt of our hand, we can strike opponents hard there. And our O-line coach does a great job. He talks about the drive the bus terminology, okay? So just like when you're driving the bus, okay, you're able to move that defender, and as he moves, you're moving, okay, and you're controlling him if you're able to get those hands on that breastplate. So you have a lot of strength there, okay? So that's kind of what we coach with our hands. The other part, the other component that's pretty important is our head, okay, and when we use our head. So it's kind of a small thing, but it makes a really big difference for our alignment. If I'm our left tackle, okay, and I have a 3 technique here, and I'm on the backside, so we're going to the right, I'm the left tackle. All right, 3 technique who's in that B gap, and I got to find a way to cut him off so he can't make the play on the play side. So what we teach is, okay, we're going to really work hard on using our head to impede that defender's progress. So as I step, I'm taking my reach step, and it may be a little bit flatter each step, maybe a more vertical depending on where he's lined up, but I want to try to get my head across and get my head into that hole. Everything else is working the same. Okay, I'm still trying to get my hands to the breastplate. I'm still coming out of my stance hard, but by putting my head in that hole, I'm able to really kind of stop him from crossing my face and being able to make a play on the backside. So it's a small thing, but we really do put a lot of emphasis on backside blocks and really try to rep that so we're not getting things that are run down on the backside of our offense. Really frustrating when you block something well on the front side, but you can't get it done on the backside, and that player makes a play there. So pass blocking, again, in the offense that we run, we are heavily predicated on play action, okay, and then quick game. So 3-step, we're going to get the ball out fast, or we're going to fake it and get the ball out fast. We're going to fake it to a running back. So all of our passes, we actually tell our kids they should look like runs. So our offensive line fires out the exact same way they would on a run. Now their mentality is a little bit different, okay, as far as what their job is, but we're still going to fire out. Okay, as a smaller offensive line, we are not able to kick slide. It's just not anything that we can do. We can't give up ground and expect not to get overpowered by some of the bigger defensive linemen who we play on a weekly basis. So we have a simple gap scheme pass blocking that we work. If no one is in the gap that lineman is responsible for, he can look to the next gap over and help if they're overloading that gap, or if their teammate is getting pressured and needs help there. So we just try to keep it really simple, and we still tell our kids, hey, we're going to fire out, we're going to get into them, and that quarterback is going to be rid of the ball before they have time to get back there. So you can't expect your small kids to back up and maintain a constant long block there and pass blocking for your quarterback to get rid of the ball. So get rid of it fast, give your O-lineman a chance to be successful there when they're pass blocking. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about skill player blocking. So, everybody blocks with their skill players a little bit differently. We have a lot of the same principles that we teach up front for our offensive line. So for our smaller guys, and primarily I'm thinking about our halfbacks, for you guys it may be an H-back or someone like that, but our 2 halfbacks or wingbacks, what we're going to do with him is we are going to make sure when they block somebody, they have got to have a forward lean. Okay, I started a halfback this year. To give you a little bit of an idea, as a freshman, he was the runner-up at 106 pounds in wrestling, okay, which that's great. He's a great athlete, tough as nails, but he was 106 pounds as a freshman. This year, I think he was about 117 was his playing weight, okay, and I have him blocking 200-pound linebackers, all right, who outweigh him, outmuscle him. So how can I give that kid a chance to win? We really focus on that forward lean, right? So as we're trying to make contact with that defender, we're able to, boom, create that pop with all of that force. So we're going to really attack with a forward lean, all right? When we make contact, we're trying to generate as much force as possible with that kid, and we feel like having that forward lean, we're going to at least be able to bow that kid up and at least stalemate him so he can't scrape there to make a play. On contact, or before contact rather, we're working on taking short, choppy steps once we're within about 4 yards, so that way our kid's under control and he's not whiffing, watching that kid go by and make the play on our back. Okay. On contact, we're going to explode with our hips and our hands through, again, on that breastplate, just like we do up front. Okay. And the other thing that I can recommend is if you have small guys, all right, and they know that a halfback or someone smaller than them is coming to block, it's going to be really difficult for your kids to make that play. So what we try to do is we really try to disguise our kids as they're coming. Okay, we're going to put them in a spot where maybe the defense can't see them, or maybe the defense's eyes are somewhere else. Okay, and we can kind of whack that kid without him having his eyes there. Or maybe he gets them on that block, but it's too late for him to defeat it. Because if my little guys are coming to block you and your big defender sees it, man, he's going to be able to make a play and get off that block. So we want to try to disguise where our blockers are coming from so the defense can't recognize it and can't make a play. Okay, again, in any offense, this kind of goes without saying. That's why it's a pretty short slide. We have to find a way on offense to get our playmakers the ball, okay? How can we get them the ball and not just get them the ball, but get them the ball in space where they have room to run? So we try to accomplish this by putting opponents in a point of conflict, right? When we're reading the 5 technique on triple option, he's not sure, should I squeeze down, should I run upfield? What did coach tell me to do all week? Okay, great, squeeze down. But the last 3 times I squeezed down, the quarterback pulled it and ran for a gain. Okay, so now I'm getting, my quarterback and my fullback, my best 2 players of the ball, because that kid's questioning, what should I do? What have I been coached to do? And maybe what do I want to do? So trying to do that and give our guys a chance to get in space where that defense can't be right, or maybe, they're giving us a set by a particular alignment and formation. So if we get in this formation, hey, we like this play because they don't have enough guys out there. So find ways to get your best players the ball in open space. Some final thoughts here just to share with you kind of what I've experienced from coaching a football team that is undersized. And it's really challenging, guys, but it's something that I really relish and my coaching staff loves. We love that we're a team that's kind of speedy and has to play with a ton of effort to be able to win football games. So understand who your kids are and what they can do, right? What are our kids good at, okay, and how can I put them in the best position to be successful? All right. As a coaching staff, you have to constantly reevaluate who your athletes are, all right, the techniques you're using, and also the schemes you're using. We ran counter a bunch this year as far as, we'd fake the toss and run GT back with our wing back, guard, tackle, pull. And we had a really, really difficult time getting our guards to kick out. Okay, well, my O-line coach and I looked at it. We said, hey, our guards just aren't big enough to kick out. And our tackles, that's not something they're great at, is wrapping around up inside the backer. So we've scrapped that. We're looking at something different for next year because I want something my kids can do. And at the end of the day, we looked at that play and said, you know what? It's a great play, but can my kids do it? Can they be successful at it the majority of the time? And we didn't feel like our kids could, so we're switching that up. Okay. Next, and this is what I see from a lot of coaches, and this is, I feel like I've done this at times especially, is, have I fit my system to my athletes? Okay, that's what I want to do, right? I want to change the way I'm coaching, change the way I'm doing things, tweak some things so it fits my kids. Okay, or am I that coach who's been doing something a particular way and it's worked for so long and I'm not going to change it, and now all of a sudden I don't have the kids to fit the system and I'm running it anyways. So make sure you fit your system to your athletes, not your athletes to your system, okay? So being flexible and varying in the ways that you do things to put your kids in that best spot to win. And the last thing that I can leave you with is effort. Effort is paramount when you're undersized. If you are an undersized football team, you cannot play with mediocre effort, minimal effort, halfway effort. It won't win you football games. You've got to play with maximum effort every single down. It's a cultural thing. It's something we talk to our guys about, and we try to get our guys to play extremely hard, down in and down out, every single play on a Friday night. So that's what we want to see from our guys, and we've kind of ingrained that into our culture and the way that we do things. But we've also set up our systems on offense and defense to allow our kids to play with a ton of effort, because they're not worried about, where do I line up in this formation, or what happens on this play? I'm not sure who to block. They're not confused about that. They know my job on this play is, X, and then, Y is coming off the ball hard, and then Z is finishing the play maximum effort. So again, just tons of effort there is really what we're looking for. So guys, I really enjoyed getting to talk to you. I hope that there's 1 or 2 things that you can get from this presentation that you can take back to your school, and it can have a positive impact on your kids, your coaching staff, and your program. So I've attached my information here. If anybody wants to get in contact with me, my email's there, cell phone, you can text me, email me, so I'm reachable there. I love to talk ball with anyone who's interested. If you're undersized, I want you to know that you can find ways to be successful. You're going to have to tweak some things and change some things, but do things that fit your kids, get them to play as hard as they can, and get your coaching staff and your kids to buy in, and you'll have a chance to win on Fridays. Thanks, guys.